So if your kid is having an angry outburst, this is what you can do.
Every parent needs to know these.
You can essentially help them finish the physical reaction, either pushing or pulling. Pushing does the squeeze reaction, and they can push against the wall, against your own hands.
So even doing like
this is perfect. These particular things will stop the physical and the emotional reaction.
Welcome to the Future of Education podcast, hosted by Mackenzie Price. Mackenzie is the founder of a revolutionary new school model that's disrupting education through AI. Join us as we discuss the latest in education innovation.
I definitely feel like maybe it started kind of around my generation. In fact, I remember my mom was hanging out with one of my friends and me, and we spent a few hours together. And after my friend left, she goes, "You guys are so boring. All you do is talk about like parenting and what you could do with your kids." She goes, "My friends and I were playing racquetball and having margaritas." And it was like, well, yeah, that was 70s parenting. I do feel like with my generation, we got a little bit more intentional about thinking about parenting. And I think that's really apparent, now. And of course, you can say that it's kind of sometimes has gone over to helicopter or lawnmower parenting or whatever. But as you said, gentle parenting kind of needs a rebrand in some ways. And there's not one type of parenting. Tell me this, I'm curious, 3 things that you think parents of this generation are doing well at and 3 places where they're not. Do you have thoughts?
So I think they're doing extremely well with emotional regulation, especially the parents on our page, right? So I might exist in a bubble, but it's so impressive how parents are sticking with teaching emotional regulation, verbiage, the skills. We see it all the time, and it's really great to see. Parents looking at themselves. Oh, this is the hardest part, right? We've seen so much introspection. We've seen so much vulnerability there is only one way to stop a pattern, and it's through the parent.
Yeah.
And that's so difficult. So that's the second thing. The third thing would be, sometimes I see how parents keep up with kids. So we cover this a lot on Reels, and I think it's hilarious, and I think it's so good for connection building and relationship building. I mean, we just had a really funny video of parents dancing a crip walk to a very old song that a child was saying, like, your parents hate it when the music is loud because the music is, I think it was rap, and this is my parents, and the parents are dancing and doing the elevator. And I mean, these particular things, like, for example, playing Fortnite, so you can connect with your son, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these things are so impressive because, yes, you had dads that threw catch, right? And moms that did makeup with kids, but now you have moms that are looking at, you like Smashmallows? Okay, well, we're gonna go and do activities with Smashmallows, and we Fortnite. We're gonna learn Fortnite.
It's really getting connected with your kids, and that's one of the things that I always think is probably one of the best things a parent can do is if their kid's got some obsession with something, go learn about it, go spend time in it. And, I always laugh. I missed Gilmore Girls the first time around, but I'm now an expert because it was something my daughter was into, and like, I got to do it. I watched Friends again. There's a lot of just things like that. Like, let's connect with our kids. My husband knows every Taylor Swift lyric that could be imagined, right? Because we were using that interest to connect and bond. And I think that is a thing that a lot of parents are jumping more into instead of just saying like, oh, I don't know about that.
And you don't notice how, because they're so little, these are little things that you do on a day-to-day basis, but long-term, that's what the relationship is built up on. And what it ends up being the difference.
So on the other side of the coin, what are 3 things you think parents are just really missing right now?
Social media. So social media restrictions for kids in particular. I mean, you see, it's very hard because you see kids that essentially look cute pretending to be adults, and adults that love how cute they look pretending to be adults. But there's so much more that goes on to that long term, and you just see kids growing up too quickly, especially when it's girls. With boys, I think it's really scary, with the how active boys are and overprescribing certain things like that.
Okay.
Just boys need a lot more emotional regulation skills, communication skills, and activity.
Versus being just medicated to behave.
Yeah, and they're policed. Boys are policed a lot. You're doing this, you're doing that, as opposed to like having them run, getting them in a sport, letting them be very physical. And things like that. I
always tell, or I always think back to this story. A friend of mine whose child was at a local public school, and she picked him up when he was in like second grade, and he got in the car and he said, "Oh, my ankles are so sore." And she said, "Why are they sore?" And he said, "Well, from the bungee cords." And she said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "My teacher bungee cords my ankles to the floor so that he wouldn't kick the desk and the chair." And she was livid, took him out of that school, absolutely livid. And I contrast that with, a couple months ago, I was sitting in our lobby of one of our schools, and it was morning time. We do a launch in the morning. And then right after the launch, our kids go into their 2-hour learning time where they're doing their academics. And one of our guides took one of our little boys who's, I think he was kindergarten or first grade, after the limitless launch, they walk outside with a kettlebell. They come back about 10 minutes later and he's sweaty. And I'm like, "What was going on?" And she's like, "We did a few laps and we were doing some kettlebell moves." That helps him get ready to learn. And I looked at her and I'm like, awesome. What a great example of this personalized, we know what this kid needs in order to be effective versus, coming in with an attitude of how do we make you stop kicking your chair? And, obviously the binding with a bungee cord is an extreme example that I hope is not happening, anymore. But those are mistakes that we're making in how to manage that. Okay, well social media is a tough one too. I saw a video, and maybe it was even on your account because I love watching what you post, but it was basically showing a girl as she gets exposed to more and more social media, and she goes from happy in this to just, addicted and more inward focused and sullen.
That's the exact video that I was thinking of.
Yes, I think that might have been, that was.
It is scary to see, and it's scary even as an adult, and you see that video and you're like, wow, I think I watch Instagram a lot too, and sometimes I feel bad like you're watching it.
What's funny? I will do lives. I love doing lives on Instagram, but I'm always really careful about when I do the lives because I'm like, I don't want to do a live and have a parent being taken away from their child or their family to watch my live. And so I'm like, I think the other day I was like, it was Wednesday evening before Thanksgiving. I was like, oh, maybe I should do live. And then I was like, no, this is when people should be hanging out with their family and spending time together. I don't want to be a cause for someone to be like looking at their phone instead of hanging out with their kids. Nice. Right? But we do have to think about those types of things.
Yeah.
Because, my lives are so big, right, Jay? Jay joins in for the lives. Maybe I can be more relaxed, but.
What are some specific rules about social media? Like, I think it'll be super helpful for parents. Don't have your kid on TikTok until age X. On Instagram, age X. What do you think?
So there's an amazing resource for this, Jonathan Hadid, and he's a powerhouse. Every age he'll give you, and he'll also give you the resources for what's working, right? But essentially, under 2 or 3 years old, it really shouldn't be more than an hour.
2 or 3 years old?
2 years old, it shouldn't be under. It should be under an hour, absolutely.
Oh, of any screen time whatsoever.
Every screen time.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about social. I was like, social media. We're not on that level.
Okay, so there's a lot of arguments that social media should be restricted for kids under 13.
Yeah, well, Australia just passed the thing. I think it's 16 years old.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea to restrict social media access until a certain age. One of the things I always think is we have to let our kids fully bake before we go out and allow who knows what to come into their.
Hopefully going to be a lot more of parental controls on things like Instagram and TikTok and things like that, where you can filter out, similar to what YouTube has. You might argue whether or not it will be good enough, but it's a start. And essentially controlling how much access they have during school. But until there's more functionality like an Instagram, for example, and more parental controls. It's so hard to do. I think really what a parent needs to do is talk to their child directly, very openly about certain topics. I mean, we have a great resource coming out about how to notice what AI is, AI scams, and what bullying online looks like, and things like that. So if you want to follow our channel, we're going to have a huge packet soon. And essentially, there are some good tools that kids can use. Google has a great game, and so does Facebook. They have great games that kids can play that basically teach them internet skills, online skills.
Oh, really?
I mean, I can give you some of those links. But essentially, parents need to watch what kids are watching and have conversations that are very honest with them, prepare them, because there is no real filter that you can try to. Yeah, there's no real controls.
Well, and I think with social media, you know, I've gone through this with my own teenage daughters. I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old, and I remember, you know, at about 12, 13, they were, each of them, you know, was saying, please, I got to get online. All my friends are doing it. This is the way people connect. Snapchat is how people talk, and all those things. And you know, we had some real conversations about two things, and I think these are always important. One is making sure that you're communicating with your kid to understand, like, okay, the things you put in your brain, you know, are going to be there. And so garbage in, garbage out. Like, be thoughtful and protective about what it is that you're putting into your brain. And I think one of the ways that parents can do a good job is watch together. Like, go through and watch social media together and see who your kids are following or who you want to develop and see that. And then the other thing that I always encourage my kids is figure out how you can be a creator versus a consumer, right? So what is it that you could put out in the world that would be positive and beneficial, as opposed to just, you know, a passive kind of let it come
I think that's
at
a
you.
great strategy. Essentially the conversations that you have with your kids are really going to make the difference. Things like, you know, what a safe image is, what an unsafe image is. Don't take unsafe images. Don't ever send unsafe images. You know, what to do if, you know, a friend of yours wants to show you an image or something you're not comfortable with. These teaching a child what to say, giving a child a safe word that they can text you, that you can essentially call them and, you know, pretend like you're super mad and get them out of whatever situation. Those particular things are going to be what makes the difference.
And that's becoming even more important, especially now with some of the more aggressive AI scams that are going on, right? And the calls, it's like, my girls and I have always had that safe phrase that makes sure that we know something's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
And as a parent too, I have 2 children, and I always like to be the heavy and give my kids an out, you know, like to where it's easy. Because a lot of times we think our kids are pressuring us to do X, Y, or Z, but a lot of times they do want those boundaries. And I feel like those boundaries are a way that we can show love. It's always a push and pull, but I always felt like I was going to err on that strict side. And then, you know, they would fight me, of course, on other things, but.
Yeah, for sure. We've had a great story where a parent has an emoji of a pineapple, and that's their safe word. And they've actually gotten a text like that from their daughter, and knew that the daughter didn't want to go to wherever the group of friends was going, and called and, you know, hey, you really got to go over here, and you're going to get so much in trouble. And it helps out. It really does. Sometimes you think kids don't want, the boundary.
You know, we had a conversation, another mom and myself, and then our 2 daughters were having a conversation the other night. And my daughter was sharing about basically a bullying incident that had happened with some friends from her old school. And so, you know, I was putting on all of my parenting techniques in that moment of like, okay, just listen. You know, acknowledge that sounds hard and that really sucks, and that's okay. And you know, just pause and let her talk. And then one of the things she had told me a few months ago, she said, Mom, sometimes I think it is helpful to hear that you understand kind of what I'm going through, and sometimes telling stories. And I was like, telling stories, because I think parents often start talking and kids are like, shut off. But I waited a little bit, and then I was like, you know, I remember in high school when I had this happen with someone I thought was a good friend, and they, you know, I felt bad as a result of what it was. And I kind of slowly edged into like telling that story, and just like, I feel, you know, I can understand how you feel right now, because that's how I felt. And she looked at me and she's like, wow, are you still friends with that person? And I said, no, not really. You know, we don't really connect, you know, anymore. And she's like, interesting. And I was like, maybe this worked. Maybe I told the right story, you know, on this to have. But it is that level of not over sharing to take away from what they're feeling, but kind of being able to say, I relate, you know, I connect.
Yeah, the relatable moments, especially with the stories. I mean, it's so important because as a child, like everything is so big and, you know, people, it feels so big. It feels, because it's all new and you don't feel like parents understand you. So absolutely, storytelling is an amazing connection tool. For sure.
So let's talk a little bit about CREATE Kids Edu. This is this very popular Instagram site, and you kind of take all kinds of, one of the things I enjoy about your site or your Instagram account is that you do take a lot of different videos from kind of all over, you kind of aggregate.
Yeah.
Tell me about the philosophy of what you want to share, and what do you think has been the most beneficial thing about having this presence on Instagram that you have?
So we are one of the only accounts that mixes in fun, funny reels. Most of the other accounts, parenting accounts, some of them do, but aren't really focused like ours. And really it's because parenting is tough. Yeah. Parenting is so tough. I mean, you need to laugh. You need to have a sense of humor with your kids. You need to be able to see that other people mess up. You need to be able to see that other kids are just as bad. You know, you need to do that. And that we love providing that. We love, there's so many great ideas that parents have, so many relatable moments that it's like, you know what, I can make it through today because I saw this parent made it through yesterday, right? And so that approach has really helped us. We do teaching a lot, but it's just, you know, it's like the parent that's always there to teach you. At some point it becomes grating, right? But, you know, the one that's fun, like you're saying, that has the conversations with you and, you know, is relatable and then also teaches you.
I was just smiling the other day. I saw one of your videos that was talking about the families that have dance parties together, you know, tend to have less stress. And my family has always been a big dance party family. And it started when we moved into our first house when my daughter was like less than 2 years old. We didn't have any furniture in the living room for months because it took forever to order a couch or whatever it was. And it was funny because I remember when the couch finally appeared, my husband and I kind of looked at each other and were like, well, now where's our dance floor? You know, that was what it was. And it was that kind of dance floor. I am in that stage of life where I do more of the dancing, but I think they're going to come back to me. I really do. I think in a couple of years, we're going to be back to regular family dance parties. What kind of content do you not like to share in terms of like where you say this is not helpful for these parents who are thinking about how to help?
We're notoriously positive, and essentially, like there's a lot of shaming, a lot of like, this is what a narcissistic parent is, and this is, you know, we don't do any of that because even if you are a narcissistic parent, you'll never listen that way. So we don't do. We're very against that. There's, you know, controversial things with, you know. Things that are very community focused. So whether it's politics and how that, or food, or things that are more, you know, controversial, right? Sure. Like, so we don't really do things like that. Essentially, we like to keep things focused on just connection building and growing a strong relationship between parents and children. And we do kind of that. So I would say that just making sure that we maintain a positive angle, always making sure that a parent knows that every day is an opportunity to change and become better. Really, some of the labeling and the shaming in order to cause change, I don't think helpful. It's not productive.
Yeah, you're not doing that. So CREATE Kids Edu is on Instagram. You also have a website, and you've got some cool resources that are going to be coming out for parents who want to just be able to learn more. And I love that idea of connecting with your kid. What are ways to do that and help them? Where can they go find information on those resources?
So we have on our website, createkidsedu.org. We have amazing resources coming out. We have free cards. So all of these are free, printable resources. We have essentially what we're most excited about is cards for kids to learn the body skills. Right?
Okay, great.
So different playing cards that kids, you can just print out. And essentially you can teach kids about squeezing in their hands, humming in the vagal nerve, how to calm down, hopping, you know, jumping, how walking gets rid of the anxiety that I need to walk away or run away feeling, right?
All those skills,
So we're going to teach those through cards. There's a lot of printable things, a lot of games. There's anger games, so ways that you can talk about anger with your child using M&Ms.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we have a lot of printable stuff that are fun. We also have linked to a lot of workshops that we've done, things like where we're speaking to professionals like you, amazing people that give you skills for like an anxious child, like what to do, so bridging and how to do that for anxious kids. And so you can see our workshops also on our website.
Amazing. Okay, so for those who are listening to this and not seeing, I'm wearing black wedge heels. You're wearing some really cute white stilettos. We are in a basketball gym. You've talked about how important it is to be physical. Are you ready to do some one-on-one basketball?
Oh, shoot. Yes.
I think that's how we should end this podcast.
Yes.
We got to go
Why
get physical.
not?
Well, Natalia, thank you for joining me on Future of Education. Love your content, love seeing it, and people should check it out. That's all for this episode of Future of Education. To learn more, createkidsedu.org. Thanks to Natalia for joining me on my first Future of Education podcast on the road, in the gym. Natalia and I have some basketball to do, but check me out again.
Thanks for listening to Mackenzie Price and the Future of Education podcast. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, now is the time to do it so you can stay up to date on all our episodes. You can connect with Mackenzie on social media and be part of our daily conversation over on Instagram at futureof_education. For more info about the show and our guests, you can always visit futureofeducationpod.com. Lastly, if you're loving what you're learning, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts.